All right, in this video, I am going to uncover the three secrets of why your front desk is become a revolving door and exactly how to fix that. And so the three things we're going to cover in this video are, hey, why are you having potential hiring mistakes and how to mitigate that? Why are we, rushing the hiring process and how to actually have a batch of candidates ready to go when we actually have a need at the front desk? And then lastly, how do we better support, lead, and manage your front desk so that they're bought in and they've become rock stars for you when it comes to following up with leads? Now, this is the exact process that I've used in my practice, and my admin's been with me for 3.5 years at this point. And this is what we're teaching our paid clients as well, so that they are seeing much less turnover. And on average, their front desk is hanging out with them 50% longer than the industry average. So take a listen to this, and we'll give you all the pearls of things that you might need. Now, one of the biggest main reasons why we have turnover at the front desk is we made a bad hire from the get-go. If I interview a lot of, and I talk to a lot of practice owners, that's one of the first big things they say is like, well, we just didn't make a great hire from the get-go. And there's a couple reasons why that happens. I think one of the biggest reasons is people will just try to find the cheapest possible route for their front desk. You'll hire a high school student, a college student, maybe somebody who's kind of an intern, somebody who has a very temporary time frame, or someone who's only partially invested at the front desk. And that's a big major problem when you are looking for somebody. If you're on a big growth trajectory, the last thing you want to do is actually to make a hire for somebody who's going to have that temporary mindset. And sometimes I'll see some other smaller practices. They'll bring a friend or family member on, or a patient will just casually kind of raise their hand or refer somebody to them. And oftentimes those folks aren't the best fit. And it's because they have kind of a temporary lifestyle. They want maybe a little bit of extra income, but you don't have anybody who has any desire or trajectory to be able to grow and actually be invested in the business. And I don't want somebody at the front desk, especially not somebody who's following up with leads, to only be partially invested in my practice or even your practice for that matter. And so I think that's one big issue. Now, the other big issue is you just make a personality mishire. Maybe you've got somebody who potentially more middle aged or a little bit older, and they seem like they're going to be a little bit more stable, and you need somebody full time. They've got experience on paper, and all of this stuff looks really good. You get them into the practice, and there's a little bit of a mismatch from a culture fit, or the personality just seems off. This is especially true if it's an office manager and maybe one other front desk, or if you've got a team of front desk that kind of start to step in. And now we've got this weird personality fit thing. Maybe you interviewed them, they sounded great. They got them into the office and stuff is just not lining up well. And one of the best ways to actually prevent that is to obviously prevent it from the get go. But I love to implement kind of a personality assessment. I think that can be a really great way. One of the common ones we use is actually the DISC assessment. There's several online resources, some you can access for free that aren't as great as the paid versions, but the DISC assessment is a great way to help you know the type of person that you are actually getting, because people will interview one way, they'll tell you what you want to hear, and then when they get in the clinic, they're a much different person. And that's where I love a personality test. I love to be able to weed out the people who are tire kickers. This is especially true for some of you guys who throw out an ad and you get 9 interviews scheduled and only 2 people actually show up, which is a major problem, right? So having them submit a personality test will help you determine who this type of person is, but also it's going to give you, a weed out mechanism for people who are actually not going to be a hard worker, which is obviously not somebody you want in the practice. Now, the other thing that I like to do here is I like to do a multi-step interview, and I oftentimes like to get my other staff members on board. What's the reason for that? The reason I like to get other staff members on board is they're, especially other front desk staff, they're going to be around that person the most. And there's nothing worse than introducing kind of a bad egg or a rotten apple or somebody who's not a good fit from a culture standpoint. And you put them into the front desk, and now the whole dynamic and the whole office is thrown upside down. And we want to make sure that those people, especially your office manager, or if it's even just you, like this person that jives with me personality wise, right? If you have an outgoing, silly, kind of goofy office, then you need to have somebody who's going to be able to do that. But if you make a bad hire from a culture fit or a personality fit, then you definitely are going to end up with a Google review that's 1 or 2 stars of somebody complaining about your front desk. Or you're going to be constantly dealing with the ramifications of turnover, which is crazy, crazy expensive in the practice. Okay, so that's the first big one. We made a hiring mistake from the get go, and that's going to be a big problem for you. Now, I think the other reason that we have a revolving front door at the front desk is because we hire out of rush and necessity rather than being out of abundance. And when we hire out of scarcity rather than abundance, one bad hire leads to two, leads to three, leads to four. And now I'm constantly dealing with this revolving door here at the front desk, which is a major problem and the last thing that you want to deal with, and you become complacent now and you don't even want to train that person, and now that person that was there for a couple months ultimately leaves because they find a job that's going to pay a little bit more, and they find something that maybe just fits them a little bit more, and now the rat race starts over and over and over again. So, what I like to teach our paying clients, and this is actually inside of our Skool Community as well. I'll link that below. I would love it if you jumped into the Skool Community. I've got the entire document with a step-by-step video guide on how to access what I call our evergreen hiring technique. Now, this evergreen hiring technique is going to help you have a pool of really solid applicants at all times that you can be able to actually call on, as opposed to you having to make a quick, rushed, speedy hire off of Indeed or some other random Facebook group or something like that. And now you've got somebody in the desk who just isn't a good fit, and you just needed a warm body. I get it. We've all been there, right? Where somebody leaves and you need a warm body, but I need to have a pool of candidates that I can call on at any given time. And this is exactly what we did with clinical staff as well, where it was really difficult to hire clinical staff. I've got this from a clinical mentor or a business mentor of mine, and they gave us the tools to constantly be hiring, if you will, for providers. And now, at any given point, I need a provider, I can actually call on a solid group of candidates. Now, the same thing you want to have happen at the front desk, because think about it, the people who are looking for a job are probably not A players. Maybe they had turnover, maybe they've been unemployed for a while, especially the front desk. It's an entry level position and they kind of want to get into healthcare, right? And I want to have applicants at all times I can call on. And so using this evergreen hiring technique where you put you have an ad up at all times, and you have a multi-step interview process where you can weed through and sift through clients or potential applicants, and then you can call on those people if you had a need. If your front desk leaves tomorrow, now you have a pool of people that you can reach right back out to. Now, one of the big things, again, you don't want to make that rush decision. And this is important. Where if you have multiple front desk staff, you can have them cross trained, or maybe your office manager temporarily steps in. Whatever the case may be, don't accept the first. If you have 5 people apply, don't just take one of those people from that group. Make sure that you're finding the best possible applicant out there, because again, one bad hire is going to lead to two, and then you're just going to get burnt out. The rest of your front desk staff may also begin to turn over, because nothing stirs kind of a practice or begins the turnover process like one person leaving. And your patients will start to recognize that as well. Hey, man, you've got a lot of front desk staff. It's kind of weird. What's going on back here? And it really paints you in a negative image if you are not taking good care of your staff and finding good quality applicants and preventing them from constantly having a revolving door. And so if you don't want to make a hasty, quick hire, use that evergreen hiring technique, which basically says, hey, I've got uh, I've got a hiring process open at all given times. I've got a weed out process, so I'm going to weed out tire kickers, and I've got videos and resumes and personality assessments where I can immediately reach back out to that group of candidates when I need to make a hire. Okay. Now, the final step of this, of why I often see a revolving door at the front desk, is the lack of support and additional resources that we give the front desk. Here's what I mean by that. The front desk kind of becomes the dumping ground. It's, hey, I got 100 tasks. I need you to help me out with all of these. It has become the, just the do anything and everything that possibly pops up at the front desk. And then what does training and onboarding look like? It's like, hey, why don't you follow this other front desk staff? They can kind of walk you through the ropes. Here's a manual. Here's some videos. Let me know if you have any questions. And then you kind of go on your way and you have minimal conversation and connection with that person at that time. And when you have minimal connection with a new front desk staff member, especially when they join the team, that's the time you set the culture. That's the time they begin to bond with you, the time that they actually feel connected to your mission and your vision of your practice. And if you fail to actually make that happen, or implant that kind of memory, or that environment with them, they're going to be much more inclined to leave for anything and everything that pays them maybe even $2 more, right? Which is a ridiculous reason to leave a job, but it's ultimately what's happening. And so, what I want to see is a really solid onboarding process, a really solid nurturing process beyond the first week, right? We need to be able to have meetings. We need to be able to have conversations. We need to be able to audit phone calls if they're doing client facing stuff. Whatever the case may be, we need to actually have conversations and additional resources for that front desk staff member. Now, the other big thing, when we interview a ton of admins. I have a ton of people that we've employed, or I train other people's admins in their other practices, and I almost always will ask either the team that we hire, or if we're training someone else's team, hey, what would make you like? What's made you quit other jobs, or made you leave other front desk positions? And almost always, it's I think so much we think it's about money. We think it's about people are just kind of lazy. They want to work from home, whatever the case may be. Most of the time we think it's about money, but never once when I ask them the question of why they left, or the other way I frame it is, what would make you want to stick around at a job for the next 5 to 10 years? And it's never about more money, which is shocking, right? I think most of us think that it's simply about more money. It truly isn't. And what they all say is, they say, hey, I just want to have clear expectations, and I want to be connected with other people in the office, and especially my other team members and the office manager or the doc. And when you can do that, when you can build a culture where you are connected as a team and the entire front desk team is connected, they are much less inclined to want to turn over. They're much less inclined to leave for $1 or $2 extra and go work at some other place, right? Or fast food restaurants are offering $20 an hour in certain parts of the country at this point. And that's crazy. And you're going to have a hard time attracting talent if you don't help them feel connected, if you don't help them actually see the mission and the vision of your practice and where you're wanting to go. That's why people stick around. They stick around because they love the vision of where the practice is headed. They love the impact they're having on the patients that walk in the door, and they feel super connected with the team that is around them. And if you can do a good job building that, promise you, that alone, among any other things I said today, is going to be one of the biggest reasons why you're not constantly having to hire brand new front desk staff every 3 to 6 months, because that's costing you a lot of money, it's costing you a lot of time, and it's making your image and reputation look poor in the community when you constantly have a new front desk member. And so spend the time, actually get to know your front desk team, what brings them joy, build that community beyond you just showing up, treating patients, and bowing out the back door. That is going to have sizable impact on your practice. So, if you found this helpful, feel free to check out the other trainings that we have. You can just hit the play button on the next screen, and we'll see you on the inside of that training as well.